time when the oceans drank Atlantis, and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
Okay, so we open on a cadre of mounted warriors riding hard across the land.
The crown of Aquilonia clings to the brow of their leader, the Cimmerian known only as Conan.
Having long ago become king by his own hand, Conan's days as a thief, a corsair, and a sellsword are ancient history.
Conan's blood stirs as he rides to face the invaders who have dared to threaten his realm.
However, when he finally arrives at the site of the incursion, he finds his border sentries have already defeated the invaders. It seems that King Conan has done his job too well.
He sheaths a clean sword and returns to his throne of steel. And while he is relieved that those in his care are safe, his unquenched thirst for battle nags at him.
He returns to his capital where things are good. The opulence that characterized the great city since its founding is no more. Under the rule of Conan, its wealth has been put to better use.
The people are looked after.
The only artifice he does tolerate is his father's broken sword, weathered and stained with blood, mounted above his throne.
Waiting for him are his family, Zenobia, his wife of many years, and their litter of children, ranging from late teens to young adulthood.
We cut to bored Conan dealing with the mundane bureaucratic affairs of managing a kingdom.
There's one item on the docket, however, that he perks up for. One of the nobles, Kaizen Graal, is facing accusations of abusing his power and exploiting the people under his rule.
Conan strips him of his titles and lands. When Graal protests, Conan bellows,
"Consider yourself lucky I am letting you leave with your head attached to your neck."
This noble, in a fit of rage, challenges Conan to a duel.
Conan accepts.
They fight.
Graal is young and fit, able to get a few strikes in, but Conan defeats him.
He decides to spare his life, but extends his punishment to banishment from the realm upon pain of death.
Conan settles back into a malaise.
Credit to his leadership, he succeeded in building a strong nation that runs like a well-oiled machine.
On the day his youngest child, Coran, reaches adulthood, Conan gives a speech where he espouses the need to attack life and squeeze the most from it.
His words loosen something within himself, and he is struck with an intense wanderlust.
Conan calls together his family and closest advisors and tells them that he is leaving.
He's taking a retinue of personal guard and going on an extended tour to see the parts of the world he hasn't yet seen while he still has time.
Though they will travel protected and armed, Conan doesn't wish to bring any ostentatious armor or banners. He leaves his crown behind.
In the meantime, the scorned Graal found refuge with the aged Countess Demaria, who has also lost much power and influence when Conan took the throne from the Epian dynasty.
However, while the Countess has lost her influence and power in court, she was allowed to keep her family estate on the outskirts of the realm, and she's been wallowing in malice and ire for decades.
Demaria has also spent a lifetime collecting fell grimoires of the occult.
Graal delves deep into long-forgotten lore in the dark underground libraries of the estate and comes upon references to an entity, Zaltaltun, the Legion.
Graal and Demaria then gather under a hunter's moon and perform a ritual of dark magic.
When morning comes, Countess Demaria meets an assembly of mercenaries. She tells them that Conan is wandering with only a small guard and charges them to attack while he is vulnerable.
After the mercenaries leave, Demaria transforms into the form of Graal, the fire of Zaltatun burning in his eyes. He muses about the fall of Conan before pulling a knife from his belt and looking at it covetously.
The gates of the capital open, and a lone King Conan enters his city.
As he ascends to the throne, a wicked smile crosses his face.
The mercenaries catch up with the real Conan and his retinue in the salt deserts of Koth,
a land very far away from the kingdom in the dried basin of the Mediterranean.
In the ensuing fight, most of the assassins and all of Conan's retinue are killed.
Amalric, the leader of the assassins, and a few survivors head west while Conan escapes north.
Wounded and alone, Conan gazes across a vast desert of salt and sand, separating him from his home.
Meanwhile, the imposter Conan implements harsh changes to the kingdom, imposing his cruel will. He diverts considerable amounts of the kingdom's resources to fund expeditions hunting down dangerous beasts and monsters. including megafauna now long extinct in the days of modern man.
With each new captured beast brought in, we see the false king resume the form of Grawl before drawing blood from the animal and transforming into a gross approximation of the beast.
Conan's young son Coran is caught spying on this impersonator. He is slain and the family is locked away in the dungeons.
Conan wanders the salty deserts of Koth. Dehydrated and sunburnt, Conan falls to his knees. He whispers a prayer to Crom, asking for one last chance at revenge.
The ground shakes and Conan thinks his prayers have been answered, only for the quake to be revealed as the vibrations of a herd of mammoths passing through.
Conan barely manages to find shelter behind a series of rocks, with many lesser outcrops being destroyed by the beasts.
When all seems calm, the weakened Conan emerges. He's astounded by the devastation, the smashed stone and brush left by the passage of these creatures.
But then he hears the heavy breathing behind him. An old mammoth, missing an eye and with a cracked tusk, stands behind Conan.
Instinctively, Conan raises his sword.
The remaining eye of the beast locks onto the blade, and the two engage each other.
Neither are able to persist for long, however, and as the sun begins to set, they end their conflict as dire wolves surround them.
Together, they slay the leaders of the pack and cower the remainder.
Atop his mammoth companion and flanked by a loyal pack of dire wolves, Conan rides to the Red River, gathering allies along the way.
Conan lays siege to his home city.
Many of the guards do not believe he is really himself, so he has to breach the walls.
As they enter the palace, the myriad nobles who had disapproved of Conan's rule but bent the knee out of fear gather before him.
They all transform into various beasts from the menagerie.
In the melee, Conan spies his imposter and squares off with him. The imposter shifts from beast to beast, but Conan, aided by his mammoth companion, is able to defeat him.
When it looks like Conan is about to win, Grawl takes the sword hanging above the throne and runs his tongue along the blade. He consumes the dried blood of a much younger Conan.
He then transforms into a version of Conan in his physical prime.
Conan must now kill this grim effigy of himself.
However, despite being a more skilled fighter, Conan is no match for the younger facsimile, and he is gravely wounded.
Leaving the real Conan to bleed out on the floor of the throne room, Grawl emerges from the keep and presents himself to the populace of Aquilonia.
The terrified citizens kneel before their perceived king, only for a bloodied King Conan to emerge.
Holding the shard of his father's sword once more time, Conan repeatedly strikes at the neck of the imposter and slowly beheads him.
With the avatar of Zaltotun dead, the magic he bequeathed on the treacherous noble seeps away.
At the sight of this, the false king's followers throw down their arms and surrender.
As his life leaks out, Conan marches up the steps to his throne.
He sits, he bellows.
I am Sumerian!
He strikes the stone at his feet with his sword, creating a ringing sound that echoes off the stone pillars of the Great Hall.
I am king!
He strikes again.
I am Conan!
As the light leaves his eyes, the screen fades to black and the credits roll.